You're listening to the Talking 20 podcast. This podcast is for you if you're in your 20s and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? We've all been there and we want to talk about it. We're your hosts, Bridget O'Rourke and Mary-Margaret Courtney, and we sit down with fellow millennials to chat about their journey and hear what they've learned along the way. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Talking 20 podcast. This is our pre-release chat that Mary and I do every week in between our interview episodes to talk about the upcoming interview, talk about our lives, and this week Mary and I actually haven't caught up in a long time. We've had quite a bit of things going on in our lives. A hiatus from each other. So we got a lot to chat about. But first we're going to get into who our guest is next week and what we're going to be talking about. Mary, do you want to give a little insight?
Yes, our guest next week is one of my old high school teachers, Frank Adriano, who taught at Robert F. Hall. And this is just one of those teachers that changed my life. The day my first class with him, he became my favorite teacher and stayed my favorite teacher every day after that. For any other teachers listening, I apologize. You were amazing too, but this man was the best. And then since then, he's a musician and works in that industry. And so we've ended up working together. We've hosted the Brampton Jazz Festival together. I've hired him to play gigs with his band. He's had me come do work for him. So it's just been like this ongoing connection, relationship that's, crossed paths over the years. And he's just so insightful. And listening to it again, I was like, man, everyone gets to hear why I love this man so much. Like, he's so poetic and smart and inspiring.
And you've talked about him to me quite a bit. I believe I met him when we were planning the Ultimate Wine and Food Festival. We went to Broadway to go on like a walk, and I think he was there with the Robert F. Hall band or something like that. Anyway, I met him, but I didn't know a lot about him then, so I've heard you talk about him since. And then when I met him, like when we were about to record the interview, I was like, oh my God, you're exactly the way, this is why Mary loves you. Like, he's just so much fun. He brings the energy. He's funny, but he also, like, is really real. But then he'll, like, relate his realness back to something funny. Like, he always, like, adds a little joke in. Yeah. Oh, man, it was such a fun interview.
Yeah, he's an English teacher, so he comes at everything with that poetic nature. He loves Shakespeare, so you just hear it in the cadence of his voice. But he's also a dad, and so he's like sharing this knowledge with us and talking about, our journeys through high school and the importance of our 20s and the importance of, trying new things and being fearless. And it was great. As I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, this is why you were one of my favorite mentors, because he was so open to people making mistakes. He was open to people exploring their lives and their personalities and their journeys versus telling them like the right way and wrong way to move, which is like a very poignant thing we've talked about on this podcast a lot.
Yeah, when I was listening back to the episode, I was like, this is the message that we want to get across. Like, Frank put into words from an older perspective exactly what we're trying to kind of like tell people and relate with people about. Like, he's just talking about the mistakes and how this is the time to do these things and make mistakes and be stupid, but also like don't be super stupid. Like, he gets everything across.
He has a 20-year-old son, so he's not even just talking about it like, oh, when my kid's 20 or in hindsight I would have. He's like, no, this is like a current conversation I'm having with my kid, and it shows a lot of integrity in the message he's sending, is where he's like, I fundamentally believe this, and I hope my kid makes those mistakes, and I hope he finds that part of himself. And and his analogies are great. I've never heard anyone relate "if you're happy and you know it" to like life in the way he did.
I don't think that's the best analogy.
No, but I got in there. I was like, how did we get here? But like, he made it work. He made it work.
Yeah, he's supposed to back. Yeah, that was so funny. And he also talks about, he doesn't only talk about like his son and parenting, but he talks about his 20s. He talks about like meeting his wife and how they were high school sweethearts, but what that meant through their like growth journey together. And they talk about when they lost a baby, which I think is so real. It's super powerful the way that he talks about it. He hasn't really opened up about it before to, I think he's
anyone
says that they kept it between them. Yeah. So, oh no, my mic. So yeah, it's just like the way he talks about it is so powerful, and you can tell like the way that he speaks, it's like it like I don't know how to describe it. Like leaves room. Yes, you can feel it, and you can tell that you and I were like so, even though we're quiet in it,
yeah,
the way you feel when you're listening is the way that we felt when we were doing the interview and listening to it then. Like it's just like you're so encapsulated by this story and by, you know, him talking about it being an experience between him and his wife, and how it's so different back then because people don't share things as much as we share things because social media wasn't a thing. So they were alone, but they were alone together. And it's just like, oh, so powerful.
Yeah. And it's the moments that he remembers in it that they're so far removed from that experience now, but it's still such it's a major valley from his 20s, and it clearly changed him as a person. And yeah, I like that he, a backstory to this. So anyone who's listened all the way through, you've heard us talk about this before. We always do a questionnaire with our guests beforehand. And it's basically just covering the really obvious basis of a person. And because we just kind of want to know the generic stuff about everyone. And then, you know, we do our deep diving later. And he wrote out
that way Mary and I can... that way Mary and I can like get an idea of their life and come up with the questions that we want to ask and kind of figure out, you know, a way for the conversation to go and how to pull out the deeper things that we want from them. So it just gives us like a general understanding of who they are, like you said. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
And so he filled his out and I read through it and I was like, okay, great. And then he actually sent me a message after and said, I didn't include this, but I really want to talk about our when we lost our first child, which I had obviously, I mean, he was my teacher. We weren't that close. I had never heard that story before. And I was like, of course, like this is a major thing and something I'm quite passionate about. Just I've watched a lot of people have miscarriages. I've lived with too many people who have had miscarriages, and seeing the suffering of people trying to get pregnant. Just the fertility journey overall is hard, and we don't talk about it enough, and we don't talk about the details of it. So yeah, to have someone who went through this at a time where like most certainly no one talked about it, it was nice to hear him finally feel the need and the want to talk about it, to get out there and be like, this is our story.
Yeah. And his story kind of reminded me, it was kind of a good contrast perspective of if people follow along with, you know, popular celebrities. Chrissy Teigen and John Legend lost their baby last year, and it was very far along throughout the pregnancy, and Chrissy actually documented it. Didn't document it, but like talked about it online, which I thought was really strong and powerful, because as somebody with that status, being able to talk about that and being able to be that kind of influence for other people in the world was remarkable, I think.
Yeah.
So it was a good contrast perspective to that, seeing, okay, but this is what would happen if she didn't have that platform, or this is like what happens behind the scenes of people who don't want to share. And yeah, it was just like, it was an incredibly cool, different perspectives of stories.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
from him to talk about the journey with him and his wife and what the experience is like as a dad. Yeah, it hit me in so many different ways. It reminds me of other stories that I've watched or other stories that I've heard of, where I just feel that people it's suffering overall. Like, you're going to grieve and you're going to suffer regardless, but people would do so much better, in my opinion, if we could share, and you could share that grief with people, so that it was acceptable that you are depressed or you're angry or just tired, and nervous about, doing anything in life because you're dealing with a death. But because it's a new life and we're so used to just don't talk about it, don't tell people, because what if something bad happens? And then when the bad thing happens, you're suffering in silence. And it's just so sad. It's so sad to see men and women have to go through that. So yeah, again, it was just like this crazy thing they've lived with for years, decades. And now he's saying, he asked his wife and she said, sure, you can share this story. And then to hear him be able to share it and feel comfortable, I'm happy we were able to provide that space for him, and really hope that someone out there listens to it and it might change their perspective, or it might encourage them to share their story.
Yeah. It was such a beautiful episode. Like, I recommend it so much. Frank has so much insight into all of the different things of your 20s and how he was in his 20s and his son in his 20s and high school students in their 20s, and he has all the perspectives. So
all things
it's definitely
20s.
All things 20s. It's definitely a one to listen to. And I'm curious about the analytics of this one, because I believe that the episode that we've released so far with the highest downloads is Liam's, which is the first one. But besides Liam's, because it's the first one and it's constantly building, is your mom's, Brenda's.
Yeah.
So the baby boomer one, and I think it's because people like of older generations really enjoyed listening to it. So I'm curious if this one is going to be as listened to as Brenda's is.
Yeah, we've said this a lot. We've had a lot of people in the older generations listening to this, and I do think there's going to be a lot of interest from people who want to just hear more of Frank's story. But this older generation, there is something similar to my mom's that I want them to listen, and I really want to encourage them to share this. There's this weird contrast. We have like the millennials, the 20-somethings, who are really good at sharing each other's content, and my friends might listen to this and then tell their friends and family, and they're very supportive. But we are getting a lot of older listeners, but they are less likely to share it on Facebook or Instagram or text your friends. It doesn't have to be on social media.
I would argue that. I feel like the older generations share more on social media than millennials. But maybe it's just because your friends.
I mean, I guess that's how you look at it. Like on yeah, Bridget's friends. Come on, guys, get on it. No, what I would say is, yes, on Facebook, our older listeners are pressing share. They're pressing the share button to their pages. Do they write a big blurb about how they feel about it? Not necessarily.
Good. You're right.
On Instagram, it's less of a thing, which I just genuinely think it's because that's an added feature that came to Instagram later, and a lot of people don't even know that they can take a post and share it on their story, or how that's helpful, or the older generation might not be able to see. And I'm flat out just like using my mom in my head, where I'm like, yeah, she doesn't know necessarily, maybe she does now, but like at one point she didn't know to click on the story to get to that account. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening.
Yeah.
She's going to listen and be like, Mary. But yeah, anyway, so I think it's just like the tools. But it's genuinely like having the conversation and letting other people know about the podcast. I do think our older generation is encouraged and ignited by these conversations, and are more likely to turn to a friend and be like, let's talk about this thing I heard on Talking 20 about being a parent, because they know that other person can relate to that experience. Whereas us in our 20s, I've had a lot of people talk to me a lot. I've had a few people that mentioned Maddie's episode saying, oh, I have so many questions. It's such a big conversation. But then we don't actually keep talking about it. They just keep talking about like how big the conversation is and how many questions they have. And then it just stops. Right? But I'm like, there's like more, like we need to get our millennials more engaged on like a deeper level. I think that's like a goal of ours. Whereas
but how do you do that? That's so hard.
It is really hard because we're all attached to our phones and not having real conversations.
But you're putting in, and like you put in the work, and you you think about how to make them more engaged and you do all your research and then you do it and it doesn't work. And it's just like we constantly have to pivot in order to get these people on board.
Yeah. And there is this crazy thing with podcasts where it's heavily reliant on marketing through social media platforms, online digital marketing. Ooh, words are hard. Marketing. I have some ideas.
Digital marketing. Sorry.
I'm still waking up. I do have some ideas of ways we can connect with people on a different, in a different way, and not use that digital marketing content. But the research is showing that's the best way to do it. And when we do that, it just encourages that behavior of like quick conversation, quick sharing, swipe up, swipe left, swipe right, click the you're not stopping to just really soak in this conversation. And 99% of the time, if you do stop, it's because it's negative.
I find this hilarious because our podcast is about breaking down the barriers of social media in the 20s, in your 20s, and yet we're marketing it through social media. Right.
Which is partially because, like, A, it is a good tool and it works. B, it is also still pandemic times and we are limited to how we can literally expose ourselves.
We can't go to events.
Yeah, exactly. But it is easier to pick up the phone. Like, I have had text messages from my parents' friends saying, I've listened to your podcast. I've had emails from my aunt's sister saying, hey, love the podcast. Also, here's someone who's looking at getting engaged. And like, really, really, like, they think of you and then they go like, how do I share that to Mary? Okay, I'll try and find her on Instagram. I'll try and find her on Facebook. Versus in our world, we're just on those social media platforms. And like, I feel like the hamster wheel is turning faster. So we're not stopping. And so, when we get in these conversations, like when I hear people mention the podcast, I'm trying really hard to stop and be like, can we talk about it? I want to have a conversation with you about the conversation, because that's the point. But it's really hard to do with our generation. And I don't think we're going to fix everybody. But there is a lesson to be learned in that.
There's that. I've actually been working on something recently because I've been noticing over the past couple months, which something that's not good when you're a podcast host, is that I'm losing my train of thought a lot in the middle of a sentence. And I think it's because, like, for a while I was like, why? First of all, do I have brain cancer? Don't have brain cancer. I'm just on social media too much. Like, I think it's just like I'm just constantly online. I'm constantly looking at screens. Like, I do it for work. I do it for work with you. I do it for the podcast. I'm always looking at screens.
And it's screens using, like, plural. Headspace. Twice.
Yeah, multiple screens. My mom even said to me, she was like, yeah, the only thing that you do that's like in reality is your workout, and even that is on the screen. Like, even that I'm following along with the TV. So I've been doing, like, trying to do mindfulness. I need to do more. I need to get out and do walks. And also, given, the pandemic, there's not, I mean, it's better now, but like, we're not going and doing events all the time. We're not going out with our friends all the time like we used to. Like, I'm not getting out into the world as often. But doing this like mindfulness exercise in the morning, I've noticed that I am able to become like more present and stay more aware, and it's helping me hugely. Wow. I highly recommend it.
So it's your Headspace. Okay, so it's an app.
Yeah. And they have like this basics course. So they have 3 courses. Each one is 10 days. And it walks you from the beginning of doing mindfulness to the end of doing mindfulness. And you were actually the one who told me that meditation isn't the act of like being present. It's the act of like getting rid of your thoughts in order to be. It's the practicing.
It's the action of bringing yourself to the present.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been doing that a lot, and it's really been helping, and I highly recommend for anybody in our generation to do it, to get off your phones and do it and have more meaningful conversations about things, because that's what people want to talk. People want to talk. Like, talk to them.
Talk to them, and like, know it's hard work. Like, I Matt will remind me all the time, like when I've been on my phone too much, or we'll be in the middle of a conversation and he'll say like, hey, what are you doing? Put your phone down. And I won't even realize it. I'm just like all of a sudden on Instagram and I'm like, why am I here? This is so annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, I think for me, I took all my notifications off of Instagram so I didn't open it, but I think it's actually caused me to want to open it more because I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, there's clearly a very toxic thing that I need to cut.
Work on, yeah.
But it's
also
hard.
Something that I did this week is after work hours, like after I'm done working, I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. So I only pick it up because I've noticed that whenever I hear a ding, whenever I hear a text message sound, I get this immediate anxiety feeling. Like this, like it's just like, and it goes away quickly, but like that's the response that my body has, and I'm like, I don't like that.
Now, what about your watch, your smart watch, whatever you got?
I turned it off to get notifications from my phone, so now I just use it for. Like, fortunately, the one that I have, the Fitbit, is not connected to iPhone as much as, like, an Apple Watch. Right. But I think if I had an Apple Watch, it would be a lot more difficult because everything's right there. But
it's
for this one,
screen.
It's just...
It's
yeah,
fast, like,
I know.
It's another screen. Which is why,
I use this more so as a tracker.
Yep. Sitting, walking, your physical activity. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm very proud that you're doing it, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I know I need to work on it more. I need to figure out what my method is going to be.
It's hard because we're online all the time.
It's so hard. It's hard and it's work. And like right now with the weddings and the charcuterie stuff picking up, I need, like, you have to get that sale as soon as it happens. And nobody wants to call you. As much as I can say, call me, text me, call me.
Yeah.
No, they're like, no, I'm going to message you on Instagram. And if you don't respond in time, I've gone somewhere else. So I need to like figure that out and just also be okay with losing a sale because it's better than losing my mind. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, at 8,
that
actually,
should be your slogan.
Lose the sale, don't
Would
lose
rather
your mind.
lose a sale than my mind. I love it. Hashtag charcuterie and cocktails.
Cocktails and charcuterie. Also, I would like to say in this episode, we talk about how loud and annoying Bridget and I were as children. And this episode was before our shitstorm with the wedding and the Airbnb and the,
Good point.
the restaurant. And then also it reminded me, so yeah, part of why we haven't talked is because I was in PEI last weekend. And Matt and I were out at a restaurant and the person behind us, they were so loud and I could hear everything. And their story was intense. Like, it was, like, stuff about alcoholics and children and, like, new relationships. And, like, he's not her daddy, but he likes to pretend he's her daddy.
You should have recorded it for
really
Talking
dramatic.
20.
But I was telling Matt about it, and he goes, you know, you should have walked up and done what those old ladies did to you and Bridget. And he's like, you should have gone up and been like, excuse me. I was like, yeah, but that's the thing.
Being too loud.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not an asshole, so I'm just going to listen.
Yeah, clearly I'm just going to eavesdrop. I don't understand why people don't take this as an opportunity.
Yeah, listen, judge me all you want, just don't tell me.
Yeah, it's fine. Or tell me before you get annoyed.
Yes. Yeah, be like, by the way, I've been eavesdropping, love the story, but you are so loud, I'm in the conversation. And then I would get self-conscious and get more quiet. Problem solved.
Or you could go up to them and be like, can I join your conversation? This sounds super interesting.
I have
questions. I'm also
questions.
super loud like you. I have questions.
Yeah. She was loud and she was loud and in like an echoey spot. So the like wall curved up and I was like, this isn't good. Like you're in like an area that's going to amplify your voice and you're loud.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's where I always want to position myself, just to piss everybody off.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
kidding.
what I meant to.
Because then people would come up to me and it would ruin my day. But it's fine. I'm over it.
It's fine. We're loud people
there's also
and proud.
something.
Loud and proud.
Yes. Loud and proud. Get loud. There's also another thing that I wanted to talk about before we sign off was I want to talk about your PEI trip, but I don't know if we have time.
No, that's okay. We
give us
don't
a
have to.
Brief review?
We went to PEI because Matt was running a marathon. Really cool experience. I love PEI. I love Charlottetown, so it was nice just to be there.
Have you been before?
Oh, yeah, a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
I went.
Times.
Well, I went.
I go every summer.
No. I went as a kid with my parents. We did an RV trip across what's that called? The provinces. Wow, the country. From here, Canada, from Ontario to PEI in an RV with my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin, and me and my brothers and my parents. And then when I got older, we went there for my cousin's wedding. And then one year when I did Coca!
Coca!
I forget the theme song. But yeah, for Coca, we were in Halifax. And so I just stayed and I went to PEI to visit a friend who was doing a show out there. And then, I went back and it was great. The marathon was shockingly emotional. I'm very proud of... Exactly.
Because you were proud?
I was proud of Matt. And also, like, it's far. Like, they take you... We got up at 4 a.m. He gets ready. It's like it's been months of prep and it's been months of prioritizing his runs and training, which I'm on board for. And then we get there and, like, the diet is really strict. The sleep is really strict. It's his first time running. He's not a natural born runner, so he's nervous. Like, he's nervous if he'll even finish it. It's 42.2 kilometers.
Okay, so you have to, like, tell me how long that would be. Like, I need some sort of reference because that means nothing. It
took him 4 hours, 14 minutes, and 50 seconds.
Of straight running?
He ran for 4 hours. Now, elite runners. Yeah, elite runners. So they're like one of his friends who is a strong runner and trains very strictly and has I would just say, like, I think he has more athletic ability. Matt says he's also not like a naturally born runner, but I think the guy looks like he's a really good runner. He did it in 3 hours and 20 minutes, I think. But then their other friend, that guy's wife, she's a very small little lady, and she had an IT injury, and it took her over 5 hours, which is insane. And for her, like, this IT band injury, it hurts to go downhill. So she had to walk downhill and run uphill to make time. It was insane. But yeah, it's like
awful.
Yeah, he gets on this bus at like 6:30 in the morning, and because of COVID and like it just being far away in PEI, I didn't go out to the starting line. And because they didn't want to loop it for COVID purposes, it was just a straight line. So they take him to like the other side of the island, and he sends me a beacon on an app called Strava. It's like a runner's app. And so I can watch. So it's funny. I was like, I'm going to get up. I'll go get a coffee. I'll go do my own workout, have some breakfast, maybe go shopping, and then go to the finish line, like watch them. So we get up, we do the morning routine. They get on the bus. I start heading back. I'm like, oh, there's literally no coffee open on this island at 6:30 in the morning. Cool. I'll just go back to the room. You know what? I'll just go back to bed. So I waited in bed.
While he ran a marathon?
I
waited
in bed.
Asleep.
Yeah, and like I watched his little dot start moving, and I was like, okay, he's off. He's running the race. Slept. Woke up about an hour later, saw where he was. He's at like 15 kilometers. Okay, go back to sleep. Wake up. He's at 22 kilometers. I'm like, crazy. He's halfway. We had an agreement that I would call him
Still
at 30K.
Have another hour to sleep.
Yeah. God love him. He said to me he saved our episode until the end because he needed to hear my voice to get like energy to finish the race.
Oh God, I'm going to barf. That's so cute. He also needed to hear my voice to finish the race.
You helped him cross the finish line. Talking 20.
Thank you, Matt. Talking 20 helped you cross the finish line.
And also Patrick's voice.
42.5.
42.2.
Whatever.
Is a marathon. Which historically, for anyone who cares, is because there was a guy in Greece that ran 42.2 kilometers to send a letter to let them know that they were going to war, that they were going to be attacked.
Wow.
And then he died.
Oh, interesting.
Immediately after he died. And think about like back then they were running in those like shit ass sandals, like their white robes. That's what that guy ran in.
Like
42.2
in the morning going to get the newspaper.
Yeah, but for 42.2 kilometers and then dying. So then whatever happened after that, they were like, that's called a marathon. Anything more than that is an ultra marathon. And let's keep trying to do this and not die. And that was like how the marathon
Wow.
It's a loose version
Good
of the
on
story,
Matt for not dying.
Not dying. But yeah, so it was just like
Not dying.
watching him, like there was a lot of anticipation build up watching him run. And like his dad would call me and be like, his dot's not moving. Is he okay? And I'm like, nah, I think he just stopped for water. It's good. Like, and so he kept going. And then
His dot's not moving.
So, yeah. Is he dead? And then at 30 kilometers, I called him and you could just hear he was like, I can't do 12 more kilometers. This is going to be so hard. And so he keeps going. And in my head, I'm like, I can't do 12 kilometers. Like, he's already been running for 30 and he still has to do 12. And he had a time he wanted to beat. So, like, mentally, it's like, I got to beat my time. So I got to hurry up, but I have nothing left in me. Like, how fast do you go? Do you stay slow so you can at least finish? If you try and push too soon, you won't end on time. Like, there's so much, like, mental shit going on. And then through it, you just want to quit. So anyway, I finish up, I get my breakfast, and I go, I watch, and I'm waiting, and it's just some of the people crossing were like men running, and then like their son would run out and run beside them for the last like half kilometer, and the kids just like,
oh my gosh,
so
please tell me you did that for
happy.
Matt.
No, I think I would have been kicked off because I'm not a little child. And then there was like this really old man who like must have been in
you need to leave.
Ma'am, no thank you. You're not 4 and this isn't cute.
Yeah, this ain't cute.
This ain't cute.
Go back to bed.
There's like go back to bed. There's like an old man running and his like wife was on the outside running like, don't give up. You can't stop. Like, it's just like so cute.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so the whole time you're just
That's
like, and like
fun.
I'm watching him just get closer and closer. And then I get there, I get my spot like at the finish line. I'm looking out and they're announcing each person as they cross and everyone's clapping. And they're like coming around a bend. And in my head, I'm just like, is he coming? Is he coming? Is that him? Like, is he going to make it? Like, it was just so, I didn't expect it. I didn't understand. And I was like, this feels silly. But like, I was trying so hard not to cry. And I was like, why do I want to cry?
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay, Mare, I need to
We gotta go.
stop you there because it is almost 10 o'clock and I have to go. So, anyway, listen to next week's episode for Frank. It's a great episode, a great boomer episode, which we love. Everybody loves them. Good insight, emotional episode, and listen to it on your favorite streaming platform. And make sure to like, follow, subscribe to Talking 20, and get off your phone when you can.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah. All right. Bye. See you next week.